This podcast is brought to you by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, find out more at steedemotorgroup.ie. So delighted now to be joined by former Leitrim footballer Emlyn Mulligan and former Galway footballer Barry Cullinane to look back on Galway's 4-point victory over Leitrim in the FBD League Final that was played on Friday night in the Dome. That means Galway now play Roscommon in the FBD League Final. Emlyn, coming to you first. If we look at it first, the game was obviously played in the Dome. Do you regret not getting to play in the Dome in the FBD?
Well, just to cut across there, I did play in the Dome in the
Oh, did
FBD.
you? Sorry.
I did 2 years ago. 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I started actually the first game. We played against Sligo. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't walk. It was the start of me. It was nearly the end of me. I couldn't walk for 6 or 7 weeks after. My Achilles, my calves, my bad knees, everything just flared up on me. It's probably the biggest regret. But no, listen, I have played on it. Yeah, listen, it's a great spot to play. Sure, listen, I suppose this time of year, especially, the weather is well, especially where the Dome is situated. There's always a bad wind or bad breeze or that sort of, in terms of conditions. But yeah, the Dome is, for fast football, and obviously that showed in the scoreline. And it was a high scoring game, but again, it's very hard to read into it because come 2 3 weeks, when like the Leitrim players will head down to like Waterford or that, conditions are going to be totally different, and it's very hard to read fully into it. But yeah, so I have played in the Dome.
Yeah.
You're going to have to sack your researcher, Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've sacked myself so. um, just on that, Emlyn, because I was actually talking with Morris Brosnan. We were talking about the FBD being played in the Dome, and you make a great point there. Conditions in 2 or 3 weeks are basically going to be brutal for most teams across the country unless they're playing in Croke Park. Does it serve any purpose playing in the Dome because you're going to be playing in worse conditions in 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, like you can see both sides of it. As you said, yeah, maybe preparation out on the pitch, a normal pitch at home or wherever it may be, might be better preparation. But as I'm sure Barry alluded to, there's teams are playing challenge matches around the country at this stage of the year. I'm not sure, and the more than team Galway sent out there, I'm not sure it was a massive focus for a lot of teams anyway. Maybe for the likes of Leitrim probably would get more benefit out of it. But yeah, the Dome itself in terms of surface and that, playing I think when Orange football, it is a lot different in terms of what they're going to be meeting in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, listen, it's a game, it's a competitive game. I suppose it's a good game for breeding in young lads. But in terms of what's ahead of them in 2 weeks, is going to be a totally different challenge.
What do you make, Barry, of the FBD games, FBD League games semi-finals being played in the Dome?
There's a couple of points on it. I suppose first of all, the fact that it's sorry, I'm muting myself. First of all, the fact that it's a centralised venue, I think, helps the situation in that on a Friday evening in the middle of winter, Galway don't have to travel to Leitrim, or Leitrim don't have to travel to Galway. And the same with all the other counties. I think it's a bit unrealistic. It's a brilliant venue and it's a brilliant facility to have in Connacht, and it's brilliant for schools and all that sort of stuff. But there is an unrealistic aspect to playing the game in the Dome, and it does play a lot faster than we see traditional pitch-based games, and that lends to fairly high-scoring games because teams really find it difficult to get that defensive structure and shape as quick as the game evolves. I think so. I think the centralized aspect of it is very good. And this is in part, it's very difficult because of the weather. But if they could maybe look at first and foremost having, a sand-based pitch outside under lights as their first choice, and then if the weather becomes inclement or goes against them, then they have the option of moving into the Dome. I think that might suit teams better because as Emlyn said, all teams are playing challenge matches and getting used to the games, but they're trying to make this as realistic as possible. And the Dome doesn't lend itself to that, but that's not being negative on the facility. It's a brilliant one to have. Overall, I think the FBD has been good for some. I think there's a clamour to get rid of these competitions, but I think some of them do serve a purpose, and I think Galway took a fair bit out of it on Friday evening.
Just before we get in and look at the game, for both of you, but Barry, did you enjoy playing in the FBD?
Yeah, I loved it because when we won, you got a trip to New York out of it. So there was a stage. You went and played New York. I remember one year we won the FBD, but we were also playing New York in the championship. So, and we had won the FBD the year before. So we actually travelled to New York in January to play New York, or I'm not sure the dates now. Went to New York to play championship, and went to New York again the following winter because we'd won the FBD. It was a great year. So overall, it was good. For the likes of myself, who probably never wintered overly well, they weren't a lot of them weren't the most enjoyable of games. And sometimes you might have been better off maybe tweaking a hammer or something before some of them. But anyway, they were enjoyable. And like I had a good one of my first, if you could say, inter-county games was I played for NUIG against Mayo in one of the first times the colleges were involved in the FBD. So yeah, that was enjoyable. But yeah, overall good memories from it. And there probably wasn't the experimental nature of it back then as there is now. So it was a little bit more competitive, but as I said, yeah, always nice to win it with the carrot of that trip away.
For a while there, Emlyn, you were having a good run at the FBD. When you look back in your career, do you value the FBD league medals?
Yeah, like it's something, I suppose, is we're operating at a different, I suppose, level in terms of top teams like Mayo and Galway, and even Roscommon at that. And I suppose, listen, I was lucky enough to captain two of them. Leitrim, I suppose, have only, I think, won 4 cups, 4 trophies in their whole career. I think it was an All Ireland B, then 94 in Connacht, and then 2 FBD leagues, So when you do look back at them, you probably would, now especially, but, I was lucky to win one in college as well in Sligo IT. We won it in 2007, I think 2007 as well. So, listen, it was I enjoyed playing it. Again, I got a lot out of it. It was probably our best opportunity to take a scalp of a Mayo or a Galway or a Roscommon. Unfortunately, that was never going to probably potentially happen in a Connacht Championship. So that gave us little bits of belief in the year. Them 2 years we did win a Leitrim. We did beat all them 3 teams. So like it obviously gave you confidence, but to show in terms of the importance of it, we won that the first year, I think it was 13, having bet Mayo and Galway and Roscommon in it. And then we went down the first round of the National League and we're bet by Limerick, So you have to weigh up, while there's an importance to it, getting lads ready, the National League it's a completely different ball game, and it's obviously the bigger teams use it a lot more to experiment. And back in the day, Leitrim probably would have put out a full 15 a lot of the time just to get that confidence up. But yeah, listen, I valued it. I enjoyed playing it, and I was always proud. Them 2 days we won it. If you look back, the highlights of RT and all like that, the news there, like it's huge for the county because at the end of the day we've won very, very little over the last 20, 30 years. So yeah, we got a lot out of it. Our supporters did as well. But yeah, unfortunately, never really developed into anything real bigger.
You would have played against each other quite a bit, lads. Is it fair to say?
Possibly not. I actually tried my career for Leitrim. Barry, I don't know, it would have been, I played Galway 2008 in the semi-final, I think it was. And then that's the only time I've ever played against Galway in championship, I think. Every other year it was either Mayo, Roscommon or Sligo. The way in 2015 I took a year out and played Galway. And other than that, that's only the one time I ever played against Galway in championship. FBD was the only time I would have played against Galway.
I think as our hairlines suggest, I've a few years on Emlyn. I'm 40 next year, so I was probably coming towards the end of my fairly short career as he was starting his glittering career. But even on Leitrim, like we had some great battles prior to Emlyn coming on the scene with Leitrim, and I always feel in Galway, and Paul, this is before you were you certainly before you were born, Emlyn. I'm not sure about you, but like there's always a real warmth from Galway towards Leitrim football. Obviously, we have the John O'Mahony connection, what he did with Leitrim and then came to Galway. But like around that 94, 95, 96 time, like Galway struggled against Leitrim, and Leitrim were the better team, and they were producing footballers the likes of Seamus Quinn and Declan Darcy, Mickey Quinn, all these lads that were some of the top footballers in the game. And I think that harbours that kind of I'm not going to say a love, but a kind of a warmth from Galway supporters towards Leitrim football, where we mightn't have that with some other of our nearest and dearest neighbours.
Not talking about any county in particular
Not
there.
at all. Westmeath or someone like that. But
On the game, lads, a question that kept coming in from a lot of listeners was, what did we make of Galway playing the development panel? They did play a couple of lads from the seniors, but a couple of lads from the seniors have either returned or are either trying to make their breakthrough. But for you, Emlyn, did that annoy you when you seen Galway play the development panel? Because obviously you want to see Leitrim up against the best Galway team, obviously, and see where they're at. But did it annoy you, or can you see what Galway are trying to do as well?
Yeah, when I seen the team name, no, it wouldn't annoy me to be honest. I understand the pick goal to have, and I think we just spoke off here. They're like the amount of teams coming through goal in the last 10 years from minors, 20s. You know, like when do these lads ever get a chance? You know, and Galway is such a strong, probably base. There are 20 lads at the minute. It's very hard to break into that. So Poor Choice has to see that, and obviously has to, some way make some arrangements for these lads to get game time. Obviously, Leitrim are in the position that probably more of a settled squad, trying to bring in a couple of new lads throughout the year, and you can see the balance then. Obviously, inevitably, Galway did start with that. I suppose a team that I wouldn't have, I'd have recognised very few names on it. Obviously, now when you're getting older, not the younger generation coming through, you just wouldn't be as familiar. But I don't think it's any way disrespectful or that. It's just the way it worked out. I think, in a Legion point of view, they'll probably be disappointed looking at it that they didn't get a win. I think, but then the other side of it is Galway last year in FBD played a reasonable enough team against Leitrim. Like, Robert Finnerty and a few other lads played, and they bet Leitrim by 17, 18 points. So, again, which do you take more from? Being competitive and coming close to winning that game against a so-called second or third string Galway, or playing a full strength Galway team who are absolutely going to beat us out the gate. So it just depends what you take out of it mentally. Every player's obviously different mindset, and I suppose Andy's going to probably try and look as many positives as he can. But I do still think it was important that Leitrim would have got a win against that team. It's just to beat any Galway team. At the end of the day, when you look at records, it will always just show Leitrim back Galway. It's not going to show the team as such. And I think just for confidence going into the league, it could have helped, especially coming off the basis of last year losing to New York and not having a good run in the Tailteann Cup. I think it would have been important just to get a victory, especially when they got it back to a draw that they could have maybe, potentially pushed on. In terms of Galway, fair play. I wasn't at the game. Chatted a couple of lads that were involved in the game. A lot of good reports coming back from a lot of the young Galway couplers, especially a couple of their forwards and that. So promising for Paul Shaughnessy if he can unearth one or two from that panel or that team that played. I'm sure it'll be a successful day out, and again, another opportunity now against Roscommon in the final.
Yeah, so during the off season there, obviously, Finian Hanley, Jeremy Blake, Joe Bergen, and Declan Meehan, and Donald O'Flaherty have all been, and Johnny Ryan have all been working away with this development panel. It's important though, as Emlyn says there is a lot of these players that probably aren't going to be involved with the seniors maybe this year, but even in a year or two, they could possibly get their chance. So it was an important run out for a lot of these players, Barry.
yeah, I suppose it varies in terms of player to player, and I think it's a brilliant initiative by Pádraig to have those guys involved with the development panel, because obviously the guys you mentioned in terms of what they did playing, those players will have huge respect for that. And then I think the real cog in it is Donal O'Flaherty, and that link between what he did of minors and 20s and the amount of players and what he did for Galway football to that he's now there as that kind of conduit between them coming out of minors, 20s and trying to break into a senior panel, and he'll know them very, very well. But they all have ambition and they're all looking to try and break into it. And what it does is that the guys that went to meet on Saturday and maybe carrying a bit of a niggle and, maybe not showing huge form, they're looking over their shoulder now saying, Galway go to Roscommon, hypothetically Pádraig puts out the same team and one or two of them show up really well. Anthony O'Leary puts himself back in the shot picture.
Who puts themselves in the picture now for you from the weekend?
Well, Cillian O'Curreen didn't really put himself in the picture. Like he's in the picture already. He's a brilliant talent. I think Anthony O'Leary is a guy that we saw what he did for Galway a couple of years ago when Kevin Walsh was there, and I think that at times maybe if Galway need a little bit more invention, someone to open up a defence, I think he still has a huge amount to offer. I think Conor Flaherty I think he certainly, personally, I think it was good for Claregalway. I think any goalie Claregalway have ever produced has played at inter-county level. I saw Cullinane came on for Conor Flaherty, but I think Conor can offer Galway a good bit. There's loads of them, like, Rory Cunningham, 2 goals. I think Galway have lots and lots of really good footballers, but I think definitely Anthony O'Leary and Keelan O'Curry and Conor Flaherty, you're not going to see, for as much and all as the progress they're making and the performances that they've shown, you're not going to see an awful lot of them break through onto the senior panel, because there's just it's so hard now to kind of drill systems into players and get everything right tactically, that making wholesale changes in your 5th year as a management team doesn't really happen. So I think if he could bring 2 or 3 through, I think he'd be very happy with that. But and then for them players, and I'm going on a bit here, but for those players, I think the message he'll be given is that you'll get as much help as you can from our management team in terms of your development and S&C and all that. You got to go back and perform for your clubs, and that'll be the real test of it. And if they show up well in this FBD, then they really go and produce for their clubs. And then at the start of next year, there might be a different path for them in terms of the Galway senior panel.
Is there anyone you've seen, Emlyn, during the weekend that stood out for you that you might have not necessarily knew before the game?
No, again, it was more the highlights reads as looking back. Obviously, I seen Rory Cunningham's finished for the goals for Galway, and then obviously said, is it Anthony O'Leary? Is it number? Was he playing centre forward?
Yeah, number 11. Yeah.
Yeah, like he looked a bit like a bit of creativity or that. But again, listen, I suppose for me, I would have been focusing a lot more looking back on the Leitrim players, and Leitrim had a couple of young 18, 19-year-olds as well. So I suppose, their first day out. So I suppose from a Galway point of view, I think for them younger players that are getting their chance now, I think Roscommon is going to be a proper test, because in fairness, Roscommon have kind of started with a relatively strong 15 in their last 2 games. So I think that'll be a bigger test for the Galway players, and I'm sure, as Barry says there, lads looking over their shoulders, that'll be a game definitely for them younger lads, or I suppose maybe they're not even all younger, but they're just, bouncing around that panel for a couple of years trying to get in the door. But it's a good opportunity, as you said, because Roscommon definitely will be a different kettle of fish and a bigger step up than Leitrim.
It's something we've actually seen Dublin have done this in the Burn Cup as well, and playing a development squad and maybe throwing 2 or 3 seniors in. Galway have done it. There is a couple of other counties doing it. I think Kildare have one in place as well. Do you reckon this is something we're going to see more of as the years go on?
Yeah, this seems to be a common trend. As you said, looking through all the teams this year, different teams of like Donegal seem to be pushing hard. There was Tyrone then started with a lot, maybe a lot of newer players coming in. So I suppose, listen, it is the only opportunity, I suppose, that there's a wee bit of pressure on a game to really see what the lads about. Obviously challenge matches are different, but even though I suppose they are glorified challenge matches, but there is a bigger crowd. There's a wee bit more pressure on it. So I suppose it does give the bigger teams an opportunity to see where players are at. And as you said, listen, looking at Dublin, again, you wouldn't know a lot. Barely looking through the 15, you wouldn't know one. Again, they've unearthed 1 or 2 players every year through these kind of games as well, So again, as Barry said, it's going to be very hard to get into a Galway panel at the minute. Jesus Porrickson is his 5th year. Players need these 2-3 years training and condition programs, tactics, everything. It's not a case that he's a good talent now, throw him in there. And the game has just evolved so much. It's just not about that anymore, And I just think it's hats off to them lads that have been given the commitment to be just pushing on the door to get into a panel. I struggled myself when I was there sitting on the bench trying to get a couple of minutes here and there, and the head was gone. Never mind lads that are maybe number 40 in the squad trying to just get near getting on a team bus for a day. You have to hand it to them to give that commitment, because it's a 5-6 nights a week job, and it's not as easy as it used to be back in the day when myself and Lex Barry would have started out or that. So listen, it's positive for Galway, because them boys are pushing on. They're pushing to start 15, and as Barry says, they're looking over their shoulder, and it's been utilised well by Galway and the bigger counties. It seems to be working well.
Is 4 or 5 the most amount of players that we're going to see from this development squad involved with the seniors in the league, Barry?
I think that'll depend on injuries, a lot of it. Yeah. We know Galway, they're carrying a few at the minute, but I would say, and this is primarily down to where Pádraig Joyce is in terms of his managerial reign in Galway. I would say that if our A panel, if you want to use it, if every single one of them were fit, I would say you mightn't see any of the Galway development panel. Because we know Cillian O'Curran was there last year.
Daniel O'Flaherty, he's probably going to be involved.
Daniel O'Flaherty, yeah, he was there last year as well. You might see Anthony. You're definitely not going to have four. You're not going to see. He's not going to drop 4 or 5 guys that he has worked with over the last couple of years and all the time and effort that they've put into that to bring in new guys. This will be very much a case of seeing who really stands out, and I think it's a piece for Galway football in general rather than just for Pádraig Joyce and his senior panel. I think it'll be whoever will be the next Galway senior manager will then be taking a real fresh look at everything, because he'll be putting his stamp on tactics and systems from the get-go, and that's where he'll be looking at developing a 30-40 man panel, and that's where these guys will be will really come into the reckoning. But I think, as I said, if everybody was fit, I'm not sure you'd see many outside of who has featured previously, possibly, and Anthony O'Leary has featured previously, Conor Flaherty's featured previously, Cillian O'Curran's featured previously, and Daniel Flaherty's featured previously. But one thing I took from the weekend is the volume of talent that's available to Sutton Lochnacar at the minute. Charlie Power, who's excellent.
Yeah, really put his hand up.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I would have known an awful lot about him. Donald Hunt put in a big shift, Daniel Flaherty, and then Cathal Sweeney supposed to be flying for the seniors, Rob Finnerty coming back from juniors, John Maher by all accounts gone to another level with the seniors. They have talent all over the pitch, and I'm sure I'm leaving out loads of lads.
Just on Conor Flaherty, because he obviously didn't play the game against Leitrim, we don't know was he involved against me, but Oran Burke definitely didn't put much of a foot wrong, pulled off some tremendous saves, really good with the kickouts when Cian Darcy came in. This competition with the keepers this year, it's going to be interesting, because obviously we've seen a bit of interchange last year with Bernie Power and Conor Gleeson, but now we have Conor Gleeson, Conor Flaherty, Oran Burke, and James Egan's obviously out injured at the moment, but there's real competition there at the minute.
Yeah, huge competition. Conor Gleeson is the man in possession, and has come under pressure in the last couple of years, but has fairness to him, I thought he was really good last year. I thought he was one of Galway's better performers. So he's the man in possession, and they have a trust in him again. That they really like the fact that he can go really long with his kickouts. And I think that's probably where Conor Flaherty needs to work, just that distance piece. I think in terms of tactically, I think Conor Flaherty is really good. I think Oran Burke, brilliant. Looking at it Friday night, brilliant keeper. But I think he will need to push Bernie Power out of the curve fin spot before he actually gets past him on a Galway senior spot. But brilliant to have, and hopefully James Egan comes back into the reckoning, because not only is a really good goalie, by all accounts, a brilliant guy to have around in the panel. So it's that's always important as well.
Just on it for Leitrim as a whole, Emlyn, disappointment obviously to lose when Galway didn't have a full strength team out, but the league is obviously now their focus. Is it a must to get up from Division 4 this year?
Oh, it is. It's a must every year. There's no question about it. It's championship. Kind of championship, obviously a big deal, but they're being realistic about it. Achieving that goal of winning it. Now, obviously this year, the favourite maybe side to draw, drawn Sligo, so there's obviously that opportunity to progress in the game. But to win a kind of title when you're operating against the likes of Mayo, Galway, and Roscommon, it's very hard. They're one-off victories every 20 years. And then Tailteann Cup again, even at that, there's still a big gap between the top teams in Division 3 that are playing against Division 4 teams in Tailteann Cup. So yeah, league is your number one priority, and I think it's Andy's third year. We were kick a ball away from it last year against Sligo, and we've seen how the tables turned within the space for a couple of minutes, to go and winning that to get promoted, to losing it 2 weeks later being bet by New York. So it's a game of inches, it's margins. But I think for Leitrim as for supporters and everything, the league is their go-to. It'll be in Andy's mind, and Mickey Graham's after coming in there now. So just that added pressure as well this year too, bringing in the likes of themselves. So it's a must. to be honest. And it's it's going to be scrapped down there. It's very hard to get out of Division 4. You've Tipperary there, Longford, Laois, Wexford. They're all teams at the same level. Every team, I suppose, the best thing is every team has a belief that it can beat each other on any given day. But a lot of it comes down to home and away fixtures and the luck of the draw as well. But I think if Leitrim will come out of Division 4 this year, just puts a lot of pressure even on the management of that.
Can I ask, Emlyn, just on from your own point of view for Leitrim, do you think we need another competition? Like even the Tailteann Cup is becoming really competitive.
Yeah, well, I've always said I think the championship should be 3 tiered. I think like Down, Meath, Cavan last year, they're still operating at a totally different level than Leitrim. You know what I mean? Like, and listen, it's more than club, senior, intermediate, junior. I think that structurally is the way. Like even you see it in the National League, the four divisions work best because that's the level you're playing at. And I think split it into one. Obviously, having Sam Maguire was a waste of time. Splitting it into two, there's still a major gap. There's kind of teams in between. Yourself. There's a top 5 or 6 potentially that can win it, but then there's another 15, 16 teams that aren't capable of winning it, but are too good probably for a Tailteann Cup. So I've always said that. I always reckon that there's definitely room there for a 3-tier competition, and whether it's senior, intermediate, junior. Like you seen junior club yesterday, you seen Arva win it. At the end of the day, people say counties won't buy into it, but after a couple of years, you bring in these sort of things, you see what it means to no matter what level you're playing at. It's about winning on the biggest day in Croke Park, and everybody just wants that opportunity.
Yeah, and teams, supporters just want to go to support teams. It doesn't matter who they're playing that get to the latter stages. Like you saw, what year did you get to the league final? And like there was an absolute huge Leitrim crowd.
People flying
like an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, people flying in from all over the world for it, and because them days are so seldom and few far between that obviously you make the most of it. But as you said there, the opportunity to get there is the only opportunity for us to get there is the league final, and Division 4 is hence it's our championship, it's Leitrim's championship. And I suppose there's so much energy put into it, and I think that was half the downfall last year when it was taken away out of our, obviously, when we didn't get promoted against Sligo last year. I think it was a 2-week turnaround to New York, and I just think the bodies were everything was drained out of them because everything had been put into the league. It's not an excuse either, but but just to answer the question, it's a must. Is every year trying to get out of Division 4.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, last year it was obviously you were on CoCom last year over in New York, and it was probably a very uncomfortable situation for you when you're involved with so many of those players, and then there was a bit of abuse with some on Leitrim social media channels directed. Is that why, just for like the management and the players, there just needs to be some sort of progression this year for this group?
Oh, 100%. Listen, at the end of the day, that New York defeat, it has to go down as probably one of the worst defeats in the history of the county. Unfortunately, listen, it just the way it panned out, and yeah, you hate to see any players getting negative abuse from it. But I suppose you have to take some responsibility. But some of the stuff being said about individuals and that, like as we know ourselves, and Barry knows what the effort players are putting in on a weekly, daily basis. It just didn't happen from over there. And listen, it was inevitable it was going to happen someday, but you just didn't want to be the team. But yeah, bouncing back this year, it's a fresh slate. A lot of them boys are back at it again. So just to put the thing straight and get the sport Leitrim people back again, I suppose it is vitally important to have a reasonable good campaign, and as you said, hopefully get promoted out of Division 4.
I think just I don't know, I'm cutting across. I think they were a bit. Well, first of all, in terms of the social media abuse, Paul, like you mightn't have seen it, Emlyn, but I did a power rankings for Paul at the start here, and I got slated online as well. So I know what the player. I can empathise with the Leitrim players, but I think the Leitrim management and players, I think, were harshly enough treated because, to go from what they had to go through that league, the emotional side of the Sligo game, and then try to get back down, travel to New. Like you even heard James Horan talk, and I've been there a few times. It's really difficult to fly to New York, and this is no disrespect. Like Leitrim aren't one of the bigger teams. Everyone knows that New York target probably Sligo and Leitrim as their two
100%
real opportunities. They had to fly to New York, try and prepare for a game 2 weeks after what was probably the most important game of their year. Like even mentally, Leitrim knew that if they got over New York, they still weren't going to win the Connacht Championship, where the Sligo game, they had to put everything into it. And I personally think that there was a little bit of an overreaction in terms of that defeat, and I would say that maybe some of the performances in the Tailteann Cup were maybe a little bit worse than that one.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like it wasn't a shock, to be honest, going over. Like there was definitely that fear, and as you said, the energy. Like we finished up there, let's say, on the Sunday against Sligo. You know, boys were doing out for a few pints last game of the league. They probably didn't get a right training session until Wednesday or Thursday, the weekend, and then you're flying out to flew out the Wednesday or Thursday, then again to New York the following weekend. Like you know, I've been over there. I've done it 3 times before that as well. And you're sitting in a hotel lobby 2 or 3 days, hanging around until the Saturday evening then of the game. And even the way the game had changed this year to a Saturday, Saturday evening, I just thought, in comparison to a Sunday afternoon, it's a longer day hanging around with your teammates, lobby. It's mentally draining. And as you said, the energy was sucked out of them. But listen, they had opportunities to win that game, but it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't a major shock. And, the previous 5 years before that, we'd been over, went extra time as well, so it wasn't, it's just, listen, nobody wanted to be on the end of that. Roscommon have come close over there. A couple of things have come close over the years, but it was always going to happen. But as you said, yeah, listen, but nowadays, yourself on Twitter and social media and these things, it's just very easy for any fella just to come on and just saying how he feels is Berg mode with no repercussions in that. And unfortunately, players do read it, and and people think it doesn't affect players, but unfortunately it does. And the local media then in Leitrim didn't really probably help either. Local paper publishing it, putting out quotes, and they're only egging it on a bit more and giving it more kind of, I suppose, value in terms of what they're saying. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they didn't deserve it either, but no matter what to say, people will still always look back and just Leitrim were the first team. I think that's just that'll be the hardest part to take. But hopefully they can put that behind them now and just push on this year.
Barry, just on a couple of Galway absentees that aren't going to be involved this year. It looks like that James McLaughlin isn't going to be involved at all. Just he's going on Erasmus, and it doesn't look like he's going to be part of the Galway panel this year, unless he comes back now. But the plan with Keane Hernan is that he's going to come back after he comes back from an Erasmus from America, and then Peter Cook. There's still a lot of uncertainty there. There are definitely 3 players ideally you would like to have involved.
Yeah, and Ian Burke obviously won't be involved either. Yeah, big losses. I think if you're to rank them in terms of their, no, I'm not going to that, but I think there lots of them are replaceable. I think Keane Hernan showed really good form last year. Maybe against Armagh struggled a little bit. James McLaughlin, a loss, but he hasn't played championship with Galway, so I don't think that's irreplaceable. Ian Burke did really well against Roscommon, but after that, I thought games passed him by a little bit. So I think we're okay there, but I think the loss of Peter Cook is a huge loss. And I think he has developed. I was lucky enough to be involved with the Galway 21s in 2017 when he was playing. We got to an All-Ireland final, and he was shown real form then, and maybe lacked a little bit of confidence, maybe a little bit of maturity, but that has all come in spades, and he was excellent for my Cullen all year. I was excellent for Galway last year, and I think what he brings in terms of his work rate around the middle of the pitch and the energy he brings, his tackle count is through the roof. Reminds me a little bit of Aidan O'Shea in that when he gets close contact with you, invariably he strips the ball. Really good tackler. So I think he's a big loss. But you have to have huge respect for the fella and what he's doing, and looking after his career, looking after making his own lifestyle choices, and kind of not just hanging around for the sake of it. And you'd wish him the very best of luck. But I think we've loads of talent coming through. It gives great opportunities to other fellas. But I would say that they will miss Peter Cook, and they'd probably be hoping that they would have hoped that they would have seen more of him this year.
Yeah, it's just hard to know what's happening. Sean Kelly was up for press and he was talking, and he said he didn't even know. So the signs there that there is a bit of uncertainty. But Keane Darcy came back there at obviously played that game against Leitrim. Just on this, Emlyn, because you obviously played club football in Dublin for a while. Keane Darcy made the move last year to Ballyboden. He's probably not a player now you're too overly aware of. He was involved with Galway a while ago, but he took a break and now he's back in the panel. But can that help a footballer? Because he looks like he's went on in other levels since playing with Ballyboden for a year.
Yeah, well, I suppose I can't speak in his behalf playing Galway. Galway club football, I suppose this is strong in itself. Like I would have moved from Leitrim Club Football. We won the county championship in 2012. I moved in 13. And I suppose my best years for Leitrim probably as captain, it was 13, 14, around that 13, 14, 15 when I was playing St. Bridges in Dublin. And for me personally, to jump from Leitrim Club Football up to Dublin Club Football was a massive gap, like in terms of the quality, the standard. And so obviously it rose my game to a different level. It was very much like playing county football every week. So like for me personally, yeah, it was a huge transition, but a very positive one in terms of for me all around game. Every league game we went out every weekend, it felt like an intercounty game. The standard was definitely Division 3 or Division 4 as high as that standard every week. So I couldn't speak on behalf of a lad from Galway coming up there because I know there is a lot of good club teams. Listen, you have a lot of teams there over a number of years. You just said like my Colin Paraffin, and then you're just naming like Salt Hill, their players different that. So the standard would be quite high there. So I'm not sure what the difference in jump level would be, but listen, maybe it's just refresh his own mind. Sometimes it's just nice to get away. I enjoyed, I'm playing a different club again now here in Sligo and living out for the last 3 or 4 years. And just for me, sometimes I lost a lot of faith in football in different times, and just the freshness, gave me a fresh mind, and it got me back enjoying football. Maybe sometimes maybe for a lad like that, it might be just a new start for him, and it's giving him that freshness again. But in terms of the quality of it, the championship is very good up there. Obviously, every team is competitive. I think that's across the board, and a lot of teams up there are capable of winning it. So yeah, listen, if it's improving his football, that's a big goal for him, just getting him back in the frame for Galway. But for myself, there's another lad there from Leitrim who would have played there against Galway tonight, Dara Rooney. He's playing in corner forward there. He's playing St. Jude's.
Yeah.
Again, in the last 2 years, it's improved his game immensely since he left. He was my club as well here in Leitrim as well. Since he left, he's just transformed into a different player in the last 2 years as well. So there obviously is a lot of benefits to it.
Do you think it's progressed on Barry?
Yeah, like in fairness to Shane Walsh, his form, although maybe slightly over exaggerated by the media, has been really, really good for Kilmacud Crokes as well. And it's a freshness thing, I think, as well, isn't it, Emlyn? Like, you come out of that, like Keane's from Carlstrand, they eat, breathe, sleep football down there. He was immersed in it. He was their big talent, big personality, big player. He goes to Dublin and it just kind of freshens things up. He's not constantly, football isn't the be all and end all of it, and it revives him and refreshes him, and he has a good run at the club championship, and then it's a confidence thing, and you'd be hoping that he brings that back to Galway. Like, you might know Keane Emlyn, but he's about 6'5", 6'6". He's mobile. He's brilliant in the air. Good kick passer, and with teams looking to go along that little bit more, he could certainly be a string to Galway's bow in terms of his fielding ability around the middle of the pitch, and they could work a lot off that. But yeah, like, I'm not going to advocate for everyone move it. Sorry, I've toys and kids' toys and everything going off here in the background. I have a child roaring upstairs. I hope her mother hears her. Yeah, it's I'm not advocating for every club footballer in the country to move to Dublin, but for those that have, it's just a different environment, and like, I'm not sure what Keane's career choice is, but he's meeting different people in work, broadening his horizons, and maybe just a little bit of maturity, and he's enjoying his football a little bit more, and more power to the lad, and it's great to see him back.
Yeah, I just think Barry cut across. Yeah, I think the freshness is the biggest thing, and I found you're going into a completely new environment. And you want, it's like when the kid come back, like you're nearly on trial again. You're trying to prove your worth, and they hear, like, obviously like the kid come from Galway, but he still has to prove it on the pitch to them lads around him. And I think it gives you that extra bit of buzz and just that extra bit of energy to because like, listen, I know it's not to say just going stale at home or different things, but there's a lot more pressure than probably him back at his home club and different things. But you go up there, you kind of you swan in there, you filter in, and as you said, while it's as serious it is, there's a lot more escape up there, I think, and it's they're not as, I suppose, community maybe based at the local parish here than down the country or that, and you come to training and you can leave and see it the games again. But yeah, listen, it's great to hear lads that go up there that do well, but I'm sure there's a lot of stories of lads that go up there and just doesn't work out either. But from listening to you about him, he sounds like he'll be a good addition, hopefully, for you this year.
You expect to see Keane Darcy involved in the league anyways, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, like I know we mentioned the development panel and guys coming through, if that Keane has been there before, so technically not new to the inter-county setup. So yeah, I would certainly see himself and Paul Conroy lining out 8 and 9 for Galway. John Maher, whatever, that kind of I think Dylan McHugh has been looked at in midfield in a couple of games. So plenty of options, and you need them, because certain games aren't going to go for guys, and you're going to have to get guys in. And the injury profile hasn't been great over the last year, so we'll need plenty of people to step up.
And just interested to get your own view. Last year, obviously, there was a lot of expectation in the county. Galway were All Ireland favourites at one stage. There is a lot of people that are already tipping them to go on this year and do it. But where do you see them now at the start of 2024?
Yeah, like I would have been one of those. Listen, obviously, being close enough to Galway was part of it. You'd always, with kind of teams, you'd always be keeping an eye on, especially when you get to latter stages where it had been Mayo over the last number of years, and now Galway have kind of taken over that maybe threshold. Yeah, like the potential is there, obviously, and like listening to the two of you there talking on about players, like it's not that you're short of footballers. I was gonna wonder or any of their grandparents out from Leitrim or something to send a few of them up, because there'll be plenty of room for them up here. But yeah, listen, the talent is there, isn't it? And I suppose it's just to getting that balance right, and it's no more than getting Damien Comer and Shane Walsh to perform together at the biggest stage at 100%. It seems to be always one performance better than the other on any given day, but you get the two of them going. But yeah, the talent is there. But I think at the minute, All Ireland, it just seems to be very open to a lot of teams. I think, obviously, if you're Dublin and Kerry, Galway are coming knocking the door. Like Derry are still going to be there. Like Tyrone, Donegal, there's still a lot of teams there that can take scalps of each other. Armagh, and I suppose these are the games that Galway obviously have to prove themselves in, but they're probably still they're not far off. I think it's fair to say, whether the league, how they approach the league, I suppose it's not the be end all either. But to have the quality there's no question. And as you said, if you could get 2 or 3 lads coming in there to freshen things up again this year, they're definitely. And I think the one thing the Call have is players coming through and have experience of winning, whether it be minors, under 20s, or of competitions like that over the years. So, and they have everything going in their favour. The management team settled there the last number of years. Well, obviously Keane O'Neill in there as well. So yeah, listen, I think they're definitely up there in the top 3 or 4 anyway, without question. Whether they make the breakthrough, we just have to wait and see.
You mentioned there to make the breakthrough. What needs to happen for them to make the breakthrough?
Well, listen, again, it's a lot of it comes down to luck too. It's getting the rub of green in some games. Like we've seen games over the years, whether we Kerry, Dublin, like to come down to single points. Like to get themselves, I think for God, just get themselves to that stage of a semi-final first and foremost. I think don't start focusing on winning it. Get themselves out of there, get themselves into a position that they can put themselves there to get into a final first and foremost. I think you have to take one step at a time. Obviously, they got to the final in the last number of years and fell short to carry that. But I just think it's getting back to that semi-final stage again and getting yourselves into that position to give yourself every opportunity. And again, listen, there's loads of luck along the way with injuries. You lose a good player, you lose like Shane Watts or something like that, your whole season could turn on the side, So you need that run of luck as well, keep yourself injury free. But I definitely think to have the firepower, the defensive setup, to have everything there, the potential to win it. But keeping the likes of Cook there would be a vitally important cog in the wheel. I think myself, having watched him over the last number of years, he'd be a huge loss. But obviously, there's plenty there if you can unearth 1 or 2 more lads.
Where did we need to improve most this year for you, Barry?
Geez, I don't know. Like up to the last couple of minutes against Armagh, it was all going according to plan. So I think we have to look at that and the Mayo performance, first half good, second half just couldn't get to grips with it. I think and this isn't an excuse, but like in fairness, our injury like the loss of Dylan against Mayo, Sean Kelly was on one leg, Dylan McHugh. Like we were, there was loads more missing. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Like we were really under the cosh. I think if we can get that right, I think we're if we have a full 15, I think we're in with a real shot. Obviously, need to get Shane's form, find some kind of a system that allows him express himself. He needs to be more clinical with his frees, and I don't think we're too far away. I think just the injuries, if we can get that right, because we didn't really have a huge depth to our panel after we lost like a load of guys, like no Liam Silk, no Dylan McHugh, no Kieran Malloy, basically no Sean Kelly. Like that's 4 of the backs that started the All Ireland the previous year. So from that we were under pressure, and then some of the guys up top failed to find a bit of form. So I think if we can get a position from Matthew Tierney, personally, I would look at him out around the middle of the pitch. I think he could be more involved there. When we didn't have Shane in the league, I thought Matthew Tierney was excellent at times, but kind of came and obviously was excellent against Sligo and stuff like that. But at times, times he was a little bit anonymous. So I think if we
you just unmute there, right?
Sorry, I moved myself. I think if we can get Matthew Tierney a little bit more involved in games and find a position where he's a little bit more dominant, I think that will go a long way. But overall, like, we seem to be very well set. If we can get Sean Kelly back, he's so important to us. We seem to be well set for a crack at it. But there also has to be a bit of a realism here in that we're in our 5th year. Yeah, we did really well, got to our Ireland final 2 years ago. The first 2 years weren't great, and last year wasn't great. So I think there's a bit of pressure on, and they'll be getting the players right up first, and that the National League is going to be important, and to get a road run at the championship.
Just to bring you both in here, there's going to be a debate because Sean McKern's back now from injury. A lot of people see him as Galway's traditional fullback and to be planted on the edge of the square at number 3. Is now the time to relocate Sean Kelly further up the pitch, or what would both of you do there? Whichever one of you wants to jump in first.
I'll just jump in first because obviously Barry will have a bigger say in terms of that. I just know from watching him, listening, he seems to be a great man coming into the opposition half and coming off the shoulder, breaking the line. He seems to be a brilliant man to creating goal chances now, whether that's just club or even in college. I watched him there for NUI was last year playing around the midfield role. Like suppose the way teams have set up now defensively, he seems to be a brilliant man at taking on the defense and just breaking that line, which is hugely important to make that link. But you obviously see him more as a defender and have a better insight to that. But I suppose if you have someone that can equally do as much and has benefited defend as well as him in the full back line, I'm sure he'd be a massive addition. Find him somewhere, push him up the pitch, but whether to be somewhere for him to filter in or what, where would you put him would be the biggest question, I suppose. But huge asset going forward.
Where would you play him, Emlyn?
It's very hard to know because you're naming players there, you're talking who do you sacrifice around your midfield, your forwards? Like, do you play him at 6? Do you play him wing back? I'd be in the wrong. I wouldn't be the right man to be able to say where to play him. Obviously that full back role, he does a good job there, and if he keeps maybe bringing that element of putting the 14 on the back foot and bringing him up further into the pitch, that can work obviously also. But probably, I suppose the fact of the goal is you do have so much quality around the pitch, that it might be a position that you'd be just able to change just like that, But just that obviously, if McCarron come in there full back and do it equally his job, have you someone else that you need to sacrifice it for up the pitch? I'm not sure.
Would you keep him in the full back line, Barry, or?
Yeah, like Sean McKern's obviously is a natural full back and has played there a lot. Kind of resembles a little bit of the conversation that went on for years about Dahi Burke and maybe we should move him. But like full back is such an important position, and when you have someone as good as he is, management are going to be very slow to move him. I might move him, and this sounds like a funny one. I might move him from full back to cornerback, and it might be a situation where, if we're playing, hypothetically, we're playing a team where we know they're going to keep 2 up top. If it's an Armagh and Reno O'Neill is there and he's going to play an orthodox full forward position, that we don't occupy Sean Kelly with that role, but that he can pick up a corner forward and do an equally good job defensively on that corner forward, but it gives him a little bit more license up the pitch, and if he goes, we mightn't get as exposed at the back. But I think what he he just causes teams such problems as this strike runner where he's coming late and coming very fast. And what he does defensively, I'd be reluctant to take him out of that full back line. But again, we're not no more than Emlyn. I'm not in Lockgeorge Tuesday, Thursday at the weekend, and I don't see what he's doing if they are going to push him out the pitch. But I think first and foremost, we got to get that ankle right and get him back on the pitch wherever we play him.
Yeah, I think this debate is going to happen all year really, but it's just the threats Sean Kelly poses. Just before we finish, the Galway development squad, they're obviously going to play the final that was revealed by Jeremy Blake and Poor Choice after the victory over Leitrim. No disrespect to Leitrim here, Emlyn, but Roscommon are going to be pretty strong. You mentioned it, they've been going pretty strong. This Friday, I get the sense we're going to learn a lot about a lot of these players against a fairly strong Roscommon team. Like, apart from, they're obviously missing the Bridget's lads, but apart from that, they've looked pretty strong in most games.
Yeah, like they've been starting, like a lot of names there, like Conor Cox, Jared Murta, and Smith, the Lennon lads back. There's a couple of names there that obviously they've been around the block a long time for Scommon. So now again, the other side of it is, I suppose, what next weekend, Drew, is it a week out from the National League then, or is it 2 weeks?
Well, the game's Friday, and then the league starting
Following
Saturday
weekend.
and Sunday week. So yeah.
Yeah,
it
so
might be
listen,
really-
another side of management are going to be looking at that. Once this was Scommond's third time then on an AstroTurf pitch again in the Dome, and they don't want to be picking up niggles and that, but you'd imagine, I suppose, listen, if Roscommon go with that strength of the team, you'd be nearly looking at, you'd imagine they would be, winning that game. But again, it's a great opportunity for the Galway lads. Like, they've absolutely nothing to lose, and I'm sure they're going to bring a lot of confidence. Whether it be only Leitrim the bet, I'm not saying that in any disrespectful way, but it's just going to bring them on again, having played together again in a competitive game to go into another game. But I don't think it's the be end and end all for Poor Choice whether they win that or lose that. It's at the end of the day, it's about development. And it's about trying to unearth one player, as maybe Barry said, to progress into the senior panel or the senior squad that may help in some way to, as you said, bring Sam back. But yeah, that's all you can ask for. Whether it means anything to them lads to win it, that's up to them individually. But I think in terms of getting a good game against a strong Roscommon team, it can only benefit them.
In saying that, Barry, like, if they put their hand up again against a strong Roscommon team, it definitely will raise eyebrows.
Yeah, will, but we don't know who's putting what hands up in the meet game or whatever other challenge games they're playing, and or if they're playing AVBs and these guys are involved. So yeah, absolutely. But they don't, and Emlyn, I know this, they don't take, a panel or someone's dropping someone or bringing someone in. They don't just take it on one or two games. Like someone has to show a bit of form consecutively, and that's what they'll be looking at. But they will be looking at particularly guys that maybe they'll come up against a seasoned defender. So they might look at someone, just hypothetically, midfielder goes and has a real game, but maybe he was on someone that hasn't shown a huge amount of form for Roscommon previously, whereas you have a corner forward that goes really well against a seasoned corner back, then they're looking, going, this guy can perform, and then can he perform in the system that we want to play? So there's so many variables in who they're going to bring in or why they're going to bring in. They won't just take it on the performances against the Roscommons, but like it will certainly help if someone puts their hand up and says, yeah, I performed every time you asked me to. Now I want to cut it. I cut it at a higher level. But you also have to respect the guys that are there and holding the jerseys at the minute.
So that's Galway and Roscommon in the FBD League Final, Friday evening, 7:30, live on TG Car. The last game, obviously, before the National League gets underway. So silverware up for grabs early on in the year this Friday. Just before we finish, Emlyn, who was your toughest Galway opponent?
Toughest Galway opponent. Back in the day, I suppose it was, I would just say Gareth Bradshaw. I would have picked him up. And the two of us would have been relevant, I suppose, similar enough in age. But he was, but again, I never had the opportunity to play in Galway too many in competitive games through FBD, and that was always different. But I just remember the championship game in 2008, marked him in the second half. And it was just a good proper battle with him. It was good man. It was man on man football back then. There was no sweepers, no mass defences. So every defender had to stand up for himself back then. So yeah, it was. I give Gareth Bradshaw a nod back then. Only that he's only fair to get a mark. But I would have crossed paths with a couple of them playing for Connacht and different interventions like that. And obviously, listen, I would have bumped shoulders with Finian Hanley and boys like that too. But even there was one of the Mehans back then. But yeah, listen, there's abundance of great Galway players over the years. It'd be hard to go into them all individually.
Well, that's all we do have time for on today's show. Thanks a million to Barry and Emlyn for coming on.
Thanks for having me.